A couple months ago, I got over myself enough to paint my very first oil painting in a decade. I was proud of myself at the time and loved being able to tap back into a creative outlet that I'd basically put to the side out of fear of bruising my ego, ergo, I didn't want to be bad at something. But this painting was just a jumping off point. After staring at it in my bedroom for weeks, I realized what I needed to do. Paint more, cleaner lines, a clearer vision of what I wanted it to look like in the end. I needed to prove I could do it again, but better. So I started on a second painting that would be light, bright, articulated, and unmessy. I was stressing at the time and dealing with uncertainty and confusion about where my life was headed. I was applying for a visa to the UK so me and my husband wouldn't be separated. And the stress of that looming over our heads made me crave the emptiness my brain feels when I'm painting. The patterns and structures of this one were tight and predictable, something I could pick up and continue without having to think too hard about it, which was what I needed at the time. I took the parts of my first mountainside painting that I was most satisfied by and tried to build the next painting from them. This section with a cleaner, brighter look inspired painting number 2 heavily. And I had also taken this photo earlier in the month and based the structure of the painting around it. I wanted to paint the California neighborhoods that I was seeing on my walks and immortalize them, especially since there was an all too real chance I wasn't going to be living among them anymore. There were certain moments while I was painting this house that I felt I should have stopped, that I was making this too much of a pattern and making it too busy, but there was something about the mindless task of mixing paint and endlessly dotting it onto this wood board that was so soothing, I couldn't stop myself. So I dotted and 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 dotted until it didn't even sound like a word anymore in my mouth. And once I had dotted my last and final dot, I became irrationally repulsed by it and needed it to be done. So I stopped and I bought a bigger canvas. Now this painting was going to be better and most certainly bigger. I had this big blank wall in my living room that I'd always had a dream of filling. I wanted to mirror the mountainside that I saw out the windows and make a Frankenstein version of some of my favorite architecture in my neighborhood. On a trip to LA a couple years back, a friend of ours from the UK remarked on how individualistic and inconsistent the architecture is in LA. Craftsman behemoths sit next to colonials that sit next to modern obelisks. And for an English architect used to uniform muse houses in a neat row, it looked like playing The Sims in real life. And there's something about that, the aesthetic of Los Angeles architecture being that there really isn't a uniform aesthetic, that it kind of looks like a kid put a whole bunch of houses together on a mountainside and said it looked cool. There's something about that I really, really love, especially knowing in my neighborhood that most of these people living in these houses have been here since the 60s and the 70s and have loved these neighborhoods as their homes. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I was taking this opportunity in this painting to try and make somewhat of a love letter to my neighborhood. Not knowing if I was going to be here much longer only made me want to paint better, show a clearer picture of the things I appreciate about this place. I learned my lesson from the second painting and decided to leave big gaps between the mountainside patterning so you actually feel like you're looking into a valley instead of a pattern. Most of the time, I don't think that you should listen to anyone's critique of your artwork. However, the one thing that Will did say to me about this is that he thought that it could maybe use greenery. So I started painting some greenery. I did some tests on the iPad to make sure I liked it before I put oil paint to painting, and I did. So I started painting trees. Now, the other thing that I love about California neighborhoods is that our flora and fauna doesn't ever seem to be native to California. I see a lot of Australian eucalyptus trees in my neighborhood and palm trees, and neither of those things are native to California. They were brought in by somebody else, and isn't that just the story of LA? And I knew at this point that these were just the cherries on the sundae. I was just adding these little details to fill in gaps that I felt needed more life. And almost 2 months after finishing my first painting, I was so close to finishing this one. So happy to finally be not done, but mostly done. I have been painting outside every single day, and if you know Los Angeles right now, we've been in a heat wave for a week and a half. but really like a heat wave for a month. It's been so enjoyable coming out here and sweating my tits off while getting eaten by mosquitoes. Kind of one blessing about the heat though is that the paint is drying really fast. Every time I've challenged myself in some aspect of these paintings, even if I failed at what I was trying to get across, I learned in the process of failing. Like in the first painting, I realized very quickly that my idea of shade and light was not accurate to what I was trying to paint. I was trying to paint values at face value. Like if you add more black, if you add more darkness to a painting, it's gonna get dark, that connotates shadow. In reality, what I was looking for was tone. Rather than painting a shadow in black, I started painting all the shadows in dark navies, in blues. It was nice to have those thoughts about things, wanting to find a solution and being able to find a solution, which is something that I feel like I haven't really been able to do up to this point. But anyways, I'm gonna finish this and then we will go put it up on the wall in the house. So I did exactly that. I started sealing the painting on the ground outside. Now I'm gonna tell you right now, not the best idea. A bug nearly embedded itself into the painting and I could have been so angry at this thing until something worse happened. I'm minding my own business. I've just gotten this bug off of this painting that I've just spent nearly 3 weeks trying to finish. And what do I see? In the upper completely blank area of the painting that very obviously is supposed to be a big blank area, a giant bird shit. A bird shat on my painting that I have been working painstakingly on for 10 hours a day, right in the most noticeable part. If this ever goes up on a gallery wall, one of the materials that I used was bird shit. Just note that down. And then it was time to bring it on inside and see if it fit up on the wall. And I'm not gonna lie, it was a very surreal moment to bring this guy into this wall and see if it was gonna fit, if it was gonna look good at all. I was really worried about being too busy for the wall. And then as I was looking at it, I realized, oh my God, maybe I should have done more to it. But like, you know, you can do that forever. You can just decide forever that it's not good enough or big enough or small enough or busy enough or clean enough, but eventually you just got to put it up on the wall. What do you think?
Yeah, that's great.
And that was it. 2 months of painting and we ended up here. I got my visa, by the way. We're moving to London in 2 weeks. Dunzos. I think it could have been longer.
No.
Yeah. Looking good.